When you say you would arrange to go someplace, how would it be arranged?
I would pay for the flight. I would book it myself. I would book the hotel room if I wasn't staying with him. Usually I stayed with him, but there's been a couple times where I didn't. And then he would reimburse me. So if the flight was, I don't know, let's just throw out a number. If the flight was $500, he'd give me $500 and say, here's, take care of the flight and things like that. So
why would he have you book all the travel and the hotel rooms?
Well, there's no paper trail.
And did you realize that at the time?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Because he was concerned about it being revealed at some point and there being a paper trail.
All I was told is there's no paper trail. I can't say what his reasons were, but I would assume that's the case, yes.
And this is the other half of it, right? That she believed that she was in love with him and she believed that he was in love with her. And that she knew from the beginning that she had to lay out her own money because there could be no paper trail. Clear evidence that he wanted it kept hidden. And she says she's not sure why, but clearly keeping it secret was the point.
I think we even heard that from David Pecker, that he testified that he acknowledged being part of this catch and kill scheme, but said that he didn't want this to even become public within the organization, that this was really a scheme that was concocted in 2015 at Trump Tower between Trump, Michael Cohen, and Pecker. And yeah, from there on, it's certainly no surprise that then Karen McDougal would potentially come up and testify that this is something that was she thought was supposed to be kept secret.
And tomorrow, when David Pecker is back on the stand, what do we expect to learn from him?
Sure. We only scratched the surface of the Karen McDougal catch and kill scheme. We talked about how initially it came to pass, but we haven't even gone into any of the detail, any of money changing hands. So that's certainly where the testimony will pivot. We just learned of kind of the broad brushes of this part of the scheme. And then certainly after McDougal, we expect that then we get into Stormy Daniels. And really, it seems like almost that was the prosecutor's intention, to sort of end with McDougal, leave them with that in mind, both on our day off and going into Thursday. And certainly from there, we'll go into the broader scheme with Stormy.
You said something about pacing. What is your sense of the pacing, of how long the prosecution will have Pecker on the stand?
I think it's likely that we go most of the day tomorrow with the continuation of the direct examination. I think it's likely we get to cross, but it's possible that this plus then going back, that it goes through the end of the week. So it's possible that we still have David Pecker for the rest of the week.
I mean, Michael, still like the social media platforms might break. I mean, I'm just, and I hate myself for thinking about what he's going to think and do, but I can't help but thinking about what he's going to think and do.
Oh, yeah. No, he is going to, lose his mind with this portion of the examination into his actions. Pecker laying this narrative out very precisely, very concisely. We've already seen in stuff that just leading up to this, Nicole, where he's like a caged animal. You can almost sense the pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what he can say, how he can say it. He's been a little bit boxed in by, the gag order and whatever his counsel's been telling him. But I think this is where some of the lid comes off of that. That steam is going to get released. And I will not be surprised at certain portions of this testimony where he is audibly expressing his anger and frustration in the courtroom, as he did just during the voir dire with the jurors. And they were just being asked, what do you think of Trump? They was like, they wasn't getting into any juicy stuff. So, now we get into the juicy parts. Oh, yeah, this brother going to lose his mind. And I think that's something that is going to be very telling for the jury. And more importantly, for the country, for all of those folks out here who are sitting back, thinking this man is being railroaded. This didn't begin under Joe Biden. This began under his administration. And the people who are testifying are not, Antifa and progressives and left-wing Democrats. They are Republicans who served in his administration. They are Republicans who fawned over him and cared for his every need, who are now, realizing Donald Trump is not going to save my hide from the institutions of justice. I'd better save myself and tell people what I know when I was in the room. And that's what you're going to see, I think, with a lot of these conversations coming up, this testimony.
Andrew, this is it could be a partial list, but this is what we know of potential witnesses: Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, Deborah Tarasoff, Jeffrey McConney, Madeline Westerhout, Keith Davidson, Hope Hicks, Ronna Graff. There's a documents expert and a paralegal from the DA's office. What do you think in terms of, I know you're not inside the case that's being presented at a strategic level, but you know a lot more than just anyone else we could ask. What are they thinking about what they have to work with?
So let me just tell you about the paralegal and the documents expert, because that is one where Mary and I talked about this when we listened to the opening. Obviously, you're going to be looking at what are witnesses going to say. That's great, and you hope the witnesses do well on the stand. You know, some of them are going to have a lot of baggage, like Michael Cohen. But you look for what are the tent poles of hard evidence. Mm-hmm. And so that paralegal is going to take the stand and talk about phone records. That's already been alluded to about certain key times, and that you want to build a timeline of when things happened. It can be so devastating, both in terms of just what happened when, because you can't, those records don't lie. And so you can sort of really place certain things in just chronological order. And you can obviously show that somebody's implicated. So if you notice at the outset of David Pecker's testimony, he was asked about his telephone numbers. Why? Because they want to link up to the records that they have. On October 26th, just before the election, the prosecutor referenced in his opening 2 telephone calls between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. And right after that, Michael Cohen creates Essential Consulting, which is the vehicle used to pay Stormy Daniels. So there are going to be a lot of pieces like that. And then there are witnesses like Hope Hicks, where you think, we think we know the whole story. And that is somebody like David Pecker. We had a sense of it. With Hope Hicks, it's maybe even more Sphinx-like, where she really can shore up things. And one thing that's interesting is, who knows about this? Not just DA, not just the Southern District of New York. Who knows about this? Donald Trump. They have all of the testimony. They have everything that she is going to say, they know. So they have a good sense of what's coming. But that's where they're going to be thinking about, when do you use those key pieces? Who do you need to shore up when in the trial? And it's just amazing. You just can't fathom him attacking her. I mean, she's really never broken with him publicly. He had other women dye their hair to look like her. It's fascinating to me, the non-attack of David Pecker and Hope Hicks. And, there's sort of various schools of thought. But, one is there's more they know. And, you poke the bear, it could get worse. It's amazing.